Wanting to win is normal in sports. But Max Verstappen doesn't simply want to win. He wants to destroy his competition. He wants to win so thoroughly that he implants himself in the minds of his competitors, crushes their will to compete, and leaves them mentally defeated before the lights even go out on the starting grid. When Max is in the lead of a race, everyone else is driving for second place. Some might say that this competitiveness forms the foundation for the Dutchman's mind-boggling success on the racetrack. But the truth is much deeper and darker. Max's compulsive need to win stretches back to a brutal childhood, under which everything short of perfection was systematically stamped out. Often told he would never amount to anything, Max developed superhuman toughness and a desire to prove himself the only way he knew how, behind the wheel. For Max, winning isn't just nice, it's a matter of survival. This is the story they won't tell you about on TV. This is the crushing reality behind how Max Verstappen survived the gauntlet of his childhood and early racing career to become a world champion. And be warned, it's pretty messed up. Formula One is all about getting on the podium, popping champagne bottles, and competing for the World Drivers' Championship. But more avid fans of the sport know that the real fight is at the back. Not all drivers have the luck to race in one of the fastest cars and routinely contend for race wins. It's way back in the midfield, fighting for the final points position, or even just to maintain your seat in the car for another sure-to-be difficult year, where the very fortitude of the human soul is tested. This purgatory of fine margins and frequent mechanical failures is the environment which shaped Max's dad, Jos Verstappen. After stepping in as an injury substitute for Benetton in 1994, Jos started his maiden F1 season in flying fashion, marking 2 third-place finishes in his first 7 races. Unfortunately, these would be the 2 highest finishes of his entire career. After a series of retirements and failing to match his teammate Michael Schumacher as the year progressed, he was benched in favor of a more experienced driver and later loaned out to Simtek for the following season. After finishing only 1 of his 5 races in 1995, the team went bankrupt. Jos, left jobless, would bounce around several other teams for the remainder of his Formula One career, never given a car that could really compete. Every race he was driving for his livelihood. A single position could determine whether or not he ever drove again. It was amid this high-stress situation that Jos and his wife Sophie Kumpen, a Belgian karting champion, had their first child, Max, in 1997. Naturally, given the demanding schedule of being a pro racing driver, Jos didn't have much time to spend with his infant son. To make matters worse, the elder Verstappen had to spend a sizable chunk of his free time in court. His legal battles stemmed from an incident during 1998, in which a fight over who was next to use a Belgian karting track ended with Jos fracturing a man's skull. While the victim survived and Jos received only a 5-year suspended sentence, the brawl may have shed a bit of light on the Dutch driver's character. Racing to him was something to fight over, and not just metaphorically. As the son of 2 racing drivers, getting behind the wheel for Max was only a matter of time. He received his first quad bike at the age of 2.5. At 4, he got his first kart, which had to be modified to accommodate someone so small. Not long after, he began competing in organized races in Genk, Belgium. Carrying his helmet, which was almost as big as himself, Max showed up on his first race weekend and never looked back. Not only did he win his first race, he won every race. The natural talent was so clear that Jos, having unceremoniously retired from Formula One in 2003, shifted his attention full-time to Max's karting career. Aside from personal coaching, he started developing engines and chassis, making sure that his son had every chance at victory. In Max, Jos may have seen the dreams that he himself never was able to achieve. The potential was there at least. And no matter what, he wasn't going to let Max fail to reach it. From Max's first race onward, the father and son spent almost a decade driving between 80 to 100 kilometers a year to participate in races across Europe. Max competed in his first championship series in 2005, the Belgian Mini Championship, in which he cruised to 21 out of 21 race victories. He would repeat this success at each higher level, winning the Belgian Minimax Championship, the Dutch Minimax Championship, the Belgian Cadet Championship, the Flemish Minimax Championship, and the Belgian KF5 Championship. Wherever he went, he would dominate. Behind the scenes though, things were far from rosy for Max. His father demanded perfection, and saw any moment of discomfort as weakness. The father and son would go to test 2 to 3 times per week no matter the conditions. One time, when Max was 8 or 9, Jos took Max to the racetrack in the dead of winter. Despite the freezing temperature, he ordered Max to go out and drive. After 10 laps, Max came in crying about the cold. Jos gave his son just 3 minutes to warm up in the van. After that, he told his son to get back out there. Max couldn't even move his fingers. But Jos didn't care. This hesitation was something that needed to be hammered out. In 2008, Jos and Sophie divorced, from which point Max spent his time almost exclusively with his dad. The marriage ended on a pretty ugly note, which no doubt had an effect on Max. Jos was charged with assaulting his wife, for which he was found not guilty, though he was found guilty for sending threatening text messages and violating a restraining order. From this time on, Max became even more isolated. Karting was the only thing in his life, and his father told him as much. If he wasn't willing to put in the work, he wouldn't be able to live up to his lofty ambitions. Jos often told his son that he would probably become a truck driver or a bus driver because he didn't have what it took to make a career in motorsport. Max started struggling in school, his studies taking a back seat to racing. With nothing left to prove on the regional karting scene, Max started competing internationally in 2010. Instead of racing against less skilled drivers, many of whom simply did karting as an expensive hobby, he was now racing against the cream of the crop, kids who fancied a professional career. While his success continued, winning the WSK Euro Series and the WSK World Series in his first year, no longer was every race a foregone conclusion. Max for the first time experienced defeat on a racetrack, a painful humiliation which he did not want to repeat. At the KF3 World Cup in 2010, he finished second to British Thai driver Alex Albon, his future Formula One teammate. Used to racing from the front and cruising to victory with time to spare, Max now had to fight for race results. This brought out his competitive instinct, as he frequently got into both verbal and racing quarrels with his rivals. In the 2012 WSK Euro Series, he famously got tangled up with a young Charles Leclerc when the two crashed after the checkered flag and were promptly disqualified.
I'm leading, he wants to pass, he pushed me, I push him back, and after he pushed me off the track. It's not fair.
What's happened with Max?
Nothing, just an incident on the race.
You couldn't blame Max for taking this so seriously. In his mind, he had everything to lose. If he wasn't winning races, was there anything left? Not according to his father. This tension came to a head at the 2012 KZ2 World Cup final in Sarno, Italy. Having secured pole position for the race, Max was overtaken by another driver. The reason for this was quite simple. Max had suffered a mechanical issue in one of the heats, which meant he had to make up places in the earlier pre-final. As a result, his tires had overheated, and he needed new ones for the final. The new tires needed a few laps to build grip, during which time he was going a bit slower than usual, making him susceptible to the overtake. While the race wasn't over and Max could have bided his time to retake the lead, being passed infuriated him. What right did anyone have to do such a thing? Max was going to make the other driver pay. He attempted to repass at the earliest opportunity, making an ambitious move on the very same lap at the inside of turn 8. This was not a usual overtake point, but Max didn't care. He was so fast, and for him, these sort of things usually worked out. But not this time. The two cars touched and both spun out. Just like that, the championship had slipped through his hands. In the van afterwards, Jos was irate. He was so irate, in fact, that instead of his normal angry outburst, he gave Max the silent treatment. Max several times attempted to talk through the disappointment of the race with his father, but to no avail. Eventually, Yosh pulled over at a roadside fuel station and said to Max, "Get out. You get out." Max, incredulous, did what he was told, and then watched as his father drove off. Left alone for hours in the Italian countryside, 14-year-old Max was eventually able to use a phone and call his mother to come pick him up. But by this point, the message had sunk in. Excuses were unacceptable. After his experience at the gas station, Max made few of them. At the age of 15, he became the youngest ever driver to win the KZ World Championship. He spent the following winter testing Formula Renault cars before being recruited to drive in Formula 3. His masterclass there allowed him to skip Formula 2, and at the age of 17, make his debut for Toro Rosso in 2015, receiving his FIA Super license before being old enough to qualify for his normal road license. At least when it came to race cars, Max was ready. Being the youngest ever driver in Formula 1 didn't faze him at all. From his audacious overtakes to his staunch defense on track, he drove as if he had been in F1 for a decade. It wasn't just talent. It was a mind conditioned to win at all costs. In the time since his debut, Max has broken through to the Red Bull senior team, become the youngest ever Grand Prix winner, ended Mercedes' stretch of dominance by winning the World Drivers' Championship in 2021, and repeated this feat with a dominant 2022. In 2023, he has increased the gap to the field, and looks unlikely to let up anytime soon. All the while, the same characteristics which defined his junior career have carried through. Given Max's rapid rise, the Formula 1 world was expecting him to be fast. What it wasn't expecting was his attitude. While other drivers certainly want to perform on track, Max has a ruthlessness which sets him apart. For one, he isn't afraid to drive like a madman, often drawing criticism in his first few years for making moves that others deemed dangerous. And when his competitors drive in a way that he doesn't approve of, he is sure to let them know about it. Moreover, Max doesn't believe in favors. Even after a heroic defensive driving performance by teammate Sergio Perez to hold off Lewis Hamilton and secure Max the championship in 2021, Max, running in 6th, refused to cede even a single place to Sergio in the 2022 Brazilian Grand Prix, when doing so would have helped Sergio claim 2nd in the Drivers' Championship. This refusal, apparently, links back to another hyper-competitive trait of Max's. He holds grudges. Not handing the place over was retribution for Perez's crash during qualifying in Monaco, a full 6 months earlier, which Max had not forgotten about. Max also is not satisfied with just good performances. He needs to extract the maximum possible result whenever he gets behind the wheel. During the 2023 Austrian Grand Prix, he pitted for fresh tires while in the lead of the race in order to secure the fastest lap of the race, already held by his teammate Perez, just to pad his own personal points total. In other words, he risked the 25 points rewarded for a race win to secure a single extra point. None of these behaviors are normal, even for a top-level Formula 1 driver. It's little wonder that his competitors have now gotten more and more open about expressing in interviews that their race is for 2nd place. And that's just how Max likes it. But when you know where the world champion came from, none of his behavior is surprising. Looking at the qualities that set him apart, it's easy to link them back to a childhood driving karts under the extracting tutelage of his father Yosh. His compulsion to dominate his rivals isn't just about proving his mettle as a driver. It's about proving a point to the world, and perhaps to himself, that he is the best. Every race isn't just a battle against his competitors, it's a battle against his own shadow, the voices from his past, and the weight of the immense expectations placed on him. It makes you feel for Max. Behind all his success likely lies a lot of painful memories. One day, hopefully, he'll be able to put it all in the rearview mirror. Maybe he already has. Nonetheless, Max still drives in many ways exactly as he did on the karting track all those years ago. And it works. All of this begs a disturbing question. Could Max have ever become a Formula One champion if not for his father's extreme methods? It's hard to know. One thing's for sure though, Max isn't his father. Asked whether he would let his own kids drive, he didn't hesitate. I definitely want kids, and if they want to race, that's fine. But would he do things just like his dad? I do think I would do it differently.